All right, welcome everybody. This is our Global Lounge Tech and Strategy call for June of 2022. I'm Krista Inakovsky, your Director of Member Success and Coach here at GBology. And the Tech and Strategy calls, which I like to call them workshops because that's really what it is, I think is a really fun and important part of our Global Lounge, what we deliver to you by bringing in really interesting guests on a variety of topics. It's going to help you move your business forward in a lot of different ways. So we've got a really great topic coming up today with my very own Michael Neeley is in the house, and he's going to be helping all of us put a closer eye on how to build our authority and visibility, primarily through giveaways and podcasts are the topics of today. Now, Michael talks about building authority in a variety of ways, including books and speaking from stage. But being that we just have an hour together, I wanted to kind of narrow it down on some specifics that I see a lot of people in our community that could learn how to refine, really kind of do it better and understand the importance of them. So that's what's coming ahead. Before we do that, just want to give a couple of announcements. As much as you can, keep your screen on for today. It helps with the engagement and so that we can be connected. I know that Michael teaches very interactively and wants to be able to see your expression and be able to use the chat to answer questions and reply and that sort of thing. But I wanted to give just a couple of Global Lounge and JVology updates for the summer. I'm bringing something really nice in to keep the momentum and the sizzle going for your summer so that you don't fall out of momentum. And so the Thursdays that are not the Global Lounge Thursdays, right? Global Lounge Thursdays are the 2nd and 4th of every month. So intermittent, the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of each month at the same time. This is for July and August. I'm going to be hosting a Better Together connection and accountability call. So in a similar fashion to our Global Lounge calls, it is open for everybody. So all of you who are in Global Lounge, and feel free to invite other people that you think might be a good fit for this community so that we have an extra touch point throughout the summer weeks to make connections, get that extra opportunity to see what's going on with everybody, share what you're doing, where you might be looking for support, where you might be looking for guests to speak on something that you're up to. And then of course that accountability piece, we want to keep the momentum going, keep it fun and fresh. And in last Global Lounge call, we introduced what's called our success map. And the success map can be found over in our Facebook group or just ping Victoria or myself, and we can get those PDFs to you. But it's a way that you can, in a simple, fun PDF, it looks like a game board, if you think of Candyland or Life, that shows you one step to do next all the way around. So that you're always in momentum and you never feel like, what should I do next? I went to a meeting, but I'm not really making as much progress with more joint venture partners or my exposure. And if you're ever feeling stuck, then just go back to the map. And there's actually 4 different levels of the map. So we're going to keep that theme going throughout our this summer with this Better Together. And I know that Victoria's got those announcements posted coming up in the Facebook group so that you can be in the loop on those. So everybody say hello to Victoria. Give us a big wave. We certainly appreciate all the work that you do for us. Are any quick shares before we bring Michael onto the stage? Everybody in good shape? Ted.
It's a couple quick questions. Is there anything next Thursday? It's the 5th Thursday of the month.
No.
Okay. And are the Better Together the same link, Zoom link, as the Global Lounge, or a different one?
No, it's going to be a different link so that we can extend those to people who are not in Global Lounge directly. And those will be posted where the invitation is. And you'll also all be receiving an email as well.
Okay,
so that you can
thank you.
put those on your calendar. All right. Yeah, great question. All right. So I am very happy to bring to our Global Lounge workshop today, Michael Neeley, who is a mentor and business strategist for visionary solopreneurs. Perfect audience, right, everybody? Michael's a former professional actor and medieval knight and the international best-selling author and speaker. And he hosts the podcasts Consciously Speaking, Buy This, Not That, Something to Whine About, The Podcast Guy, and as of last week, Michael and I have released our own podcast together, which is called Mornings with Michael and Krista, which has been a ton of fun. And we certainly hope you guys will tune in. We're loving the response so far. As the founder of the Authority Academy, Michael trains and supports heart-centered entrepreneurs in professional speaking, virtual summits, getting published, and designing and hosting their own podcasts to massively grow their business and expand their audience. Michael is also a mindset master with a gift for helping people to get out of their own way. If you're tired of being the best kept secret, then Michael is your guy because he's going to help you know how to get out there, be more visible, and get heard. And we'll have ways for you to connect with Michael. And I know he's got a lot of great gifts coming up. So do me a favor and let's give Michael Neeley a big round of applause. Jazz hands.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the wonderful introduction, Krista, and I appreciate you for so many other things, including being my co-host of Mornings with Michael and Krista. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak here to the group today because it's something, quite frankly, that I got to be honest, I stumbled upon somewhat of you can call it a secret formula, a magic formula, whatever you want to think of it as, but I kind of fell into it. And the whole way that I started teaching it was, I'm going to just backtrack a little bit to give you some backstory. I was well, Krista mentioned, I used to be a professional actor. And when my son was born, while I was living in Los Angeles in 2002, I decided to stop my acting career. I'm like, that's it. It's time to move on to something bigger, better. You know, acting it's tough being a parent because sometimes you might have to go away and be in a movie set for 2 or 3 months at a time. You might make good money for those 2 or 3 months, and then maybe go 6 months without any work at all. And I'm like, it's not really a great way to parent a newborn. And so when he was 2 years old, I left Los Angeles and moved to Santa Cruz. And quite honestly, I floundered for a little bit trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I knew I wanted to be an actor since 4th grade. And so now what am I going to do? And through, stumbling a few different jobs, I was in the pharmaceutical industry with AstraZeneca for a while. I got involved in a high-tech startup company. And while I was doing that, eventually I formed my own high-tech startup and raised a lot of money for it. But when we were hitting the end of our financial runway, I could see the writing on the walls. Like, we were not getting any new investors. We were going to sink. And I had to figure out something else to do. And I kind of stumbled into podcasting. I was coaching at the time on mindset breakthrough and stuff because I had a lot of background in that. And a lot of my friends were what I'd consider consciousness coaches and trainers. And I just studied deeply in that arena. And so I was coaching this guy, and he's like having these really great breakthroughs in the call. And at one point I'm like, maybe we should be recording this because you're having so many aha moments. Let's be sure to capture it. And he was cool with that. So we recorded it. And at the end, we played it back, and he said, dude, that sounds really good. You should start a podcast. And this is 2014. And I knew zip about podcasting. I had heard the word, but I didn't even know what one was. I'd never listened to one in my life. And so within 2 weeks, though, I launched my first show. And then some other stuff started to happen, which I'm going to share about, that created this magic formula that I'm talking about. And one of the things, as this, spectrum continued, I started having people come out of the woodwork saying, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? Like, I was growing by leaps and bounds, and I didn't even realize, because I was new to the industry. And then, by the way, it's a very similar industry that all of us are in, coaching people, supporting people, doing that type of work. And even at one event I was at with Steve Olsher, and we're sitting down next to each other over lunch and getting to know each other a bit. And he asked me about my podcast, and I told him it was Consciously Speaking. He was like, oh yeah, I heard of that show and everything. And I told him how many downloads I had, and he was like blown away. And he's like, wow, I'd be curious to hear how you had that happen. But he also invited me to be an icon of influence at his first New Media Summit. And I went on to be one of the icons for his events for, the 5 consecutive summits that he did. And in looking back in hindsight at this, in about 2015, I realized what I had done that worked. And it also made me realize a mistake that I see so many other people making that keeps them from truly growing their authority and their influence in a fast and, quite honestly, successful way. And that's this: having a podcast, great. Tick that box, Yahoo for you. That is awesome. And that alone is a tool. Having a book published, excellent. That takes a lot more tenacity even than to create a podcast. And kudos to you. But again, that's just a single tool. Building your speaking prowess, being able to speak from stage, wonderful. That is a separate talent entirely that takes a lot of practice and maybe overcoming some of your own fear of being on stage. Excellent. Another tool. And then, of course, how many of you have ever done a virtual summit? I even saw in the chat, somebody's got a virtual summit coming up. How many of you done your own virtual summit? Show of hands there. Okay. I don't see anybody's done their own virtual summit. Virtual summits, another amazing tool. But here's the deal. All of these items individually are tools. They're just that. It's like a tool belt. And guess what? A carpenter, a house builder, a developer, they cannot build a house with just a hammer, can you? You're going to need a saw. You're going to need maybe some nails. You're going to need some other tools to help you build it. You're going to need some measuring tape. You're going to need a whole tool belt of tools to build the house. And so many people I see in the industry try to go, no, I'm just going to do this one thing. I'm just going to get my book published. I'm just going to do, I'm just a podcaster. I'm not going to do any of that other stuff. And the fact of the matter is, when you do it that way, you're just working with tools and you're not really going to build yourself what I consider a vehicle that can transport you to where you want to be as far as building your authority and influence. That's what we're going to talk about today, how to build your authority and influence with giveaways and podcasts. But on top of that, I just want to mention that having all of these elements together, and giveaways, by the way, I often use interchangeably with summits, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But having what I consider the 4 pillars of authority will exponentially move the needle for you. Podcasting, virtual summit, speaking from stage, getting published. When you have all of those working effectively for you, instead of just this slow grow over time, you will find that you start to get that hockey stick momentum that will take you to the top of your game. And what happened for me is I was passing other entrepreneurs who'd been in it for longer than me. And then they started asking me, how are you doing this? What did you do? And that's when I really had to look at it and realize, oh, this is what I did, without even knowing. It wasn't like I came up with the idea. I just looked in hindsight and go, oh, I did all these things. And wow, they work really beautifully together. And guess what else? They work easily together because they support each other. You've probably all heard that expression of, like, I don't think I have a pencil here, but I'll use a pen, that if you take a pencil by itself, very easy to snap. But if you've got a handful of pencils, much harder to snap. It's much stronger. And when you use these tools in combination, that's what they become. They become more powerful, stronger, and it helps your business to grow. So I'm going to start out with podcasting. And I know I heard somebody here getting ready to launch their podcast. That's really awesome. That was Lorraine, right? And I know I've got some other folks. Yuri's in my podcasting training, and she's going to be launching hopefully soon. And as Krista mentioned, her and I just, proper English would be, she and I just launched our podcast, Mornings with Michael and Krista. And it's my 5th podcast. They're not hard to launch. The trick is making them successful. And so I want to cover some of what makes a podcast powerful and how to make one successful. But first, I got to ask a big question here. Show of hands. How many of you are in business? Okay, you got your own business. Any business, and I challenge you to give me a business that doesn't work this way. I was even thinking about this as I was going to pose this challenge to you. And I came up with an analogy that I won't share unless necessary, but I challenge you to find any business that does not operate primarily on these 3 things I'm about to share with you. 3 things. Every business, number 1, needs leads. We all need leads. We all need to find our clientele, people who are going to buy from us. Number 2, we need to convert those leads into customers, which means we need sales. Okay. So businesses exist first on leads, then on sales. And then the final thing is after we sell, we have fulfillment. That's the third item. So those are the three fundamental pieces of any business: leads, sales, fulfillment. Podcasting is an amazing lead generator. It's phenomenal because with your podcast, you're reaching people while you're sleeping. You're reaching people that you don't even know about. Krista and I are already getting listenership. And by the way, we know that we're reaching folks who don't necessarily know us, because I was actually excited that we got our first 3-star rating. And any of you who are in podcasting, I challenge you even to celebrate your first 3-star, 2-star, even a 1-star rating, because guess what? That means you're being discovered. Obviously, when we tell our friends and family they love us, they're going to give us a 5-star, maybe a 4-star, but they're going to give us those higher kudos because they love us and they're our friends and family. But the people who don't know us and find us, maybe we're not a right fit for them, and we may get a lower rating. And that's great for you to see that, because you know you're getting discovered. And that's so important with podcasting. And it's one of the values. As a podcast host, your message is getting out to the world in a massive way. Podcast listenership is growing by leaps and bounds. It truly is phenomenal. And when you do that, you're going to be discovered by a lot of people out there who have no idea who you are. They're just searching through stuff. They're looking for titles. And by the way, this is part of the success of a show: is how do you position yourself? How do you get the right keywords in there? How do you make sure you are discoverable? We'll talk a little bit about that today if we have time. But that's the thing with podcasting. You will be found, and not just locally, around the world. People will find you everywhere because your podcast goes global immediately. Now, another quick question. How many of you do live events, do your own events, whether virtual or in person? Okay, cool. We got a few of you doing your own live events, at least those who have video on and I can see your hands. How many of you would be super happy to do a live event and have 100 people there? You'd be happy with 100 people, right? Guess what? With your podcast, you should be able to get 100 people on a regular basis. People tuning into your show every time a new episode comes out. And guess what? You don't even have to pay for a venue. You don't have to put on your fancy outfit. You don't have to leave the house. And that's what you can get with a podcast audience regularly. So it's super valuable, even if that, and by the way, I'd consider that a small audience. For those of you who don't know, the median number of downloads, or let's just translate it potentially as listeners of a podcast, the median number, that means 50% get less, 50% get more, is 130. 130. 50% of the podcasts don't even get 130 listeners, but that means 50% do. 50% get 130 plus. So I imagine every one of you here is going to be above that 50% mark. You're going to be in the top half, and that's a regular ongoing audience of listeners that you have that are there. Now, that's the part of lead generation. Number one, first they're listening. Now, how do you turn them into somebody on your list, a real lead, somebody that you can communicate with and make offers to regularly? You got to have a great lead magnet. Now, we're not going to go deep into all of the elements of podcast training, but I'm sure Chris has worked with y'all in this group on lead magnets before, and I'm sure Jay's probably worked with you on it as well. Your lead magnet is super important, but that's how you're going to convert your listeners into your list. I love how the first 4 letters of listener happens to be list. So you're going to translate them into your list by having a cool lead magnet. So your podcast is out there doing your lead generation for you. Next up is sales. How many of you started your business and got into what you do because you just love sales? Didn't think so. I hate sales. And that's another thing that I love about podcasting is it makes selling easy. Why? Because of the know, like, trust factor, KLT. You've all probably heard of that at some point or another. And here's the deal. Studies have even shown that podcast advertising, that's companies that have a podcast host mention their product, does 132% better than radio or television. 132%. And the reason is, when you see an ad on radio or TV, see it on radio, hear it on No, see it on TV, hear it on radio. When that happens, it's just an ad running. You don't have a relationship to the person who's up there selling you auto insurance or whatever. But when a podcast host brings up this topic, oh my God, I love Folgers coffee. I drink it every day. It is so good. I used to just be a 1 cup a day kind of guy, but now I have to have 2 or 3 cups because Folgers is the best. Well, when someone hears a podcast host talking about that and they know, like, and trust that person, guess what? They're going to give Folgers a try, probably. Not everybody, of course, because Folgers stinks, but they may give it a try. Okay. But here's the deal. It's that know, like, trust factor. And now when you're offering your own stuff to this audience who keeps coming back to hear you again and again because they know you now, they feel like they know you, they like you, otherwise they wouldn't keep coming back, and they trust you because they're listening to what you're laying down. When you've got that built, sales become so much easier. And then it becomes a matter of timing, or as I like to say, your timing, because the timing has to be right. And here's another reason a podcast is so valuable for you. How many of you are looking to buy a new car this week? By show of hands, anybody looking to buy a new car this week? How many of you probably will be in the next 6 months? Anybody? The next year? The next 3 years? Okay, so now see hands start to show up. This is the deal. You got to think of your product, whatever it is you're selling, your product, program, or service, in the same way. At any given moment in time, probably 3% of the population are looking for exactly what you have to offer at any given point in time. And some marketing studies have shown these are kind of the numbers that average out. So they're looking for what it is that you have to offer, but only 3%. Above that, the next 7% are probably going to be looking for your service within the next 3 to 6 months. Okay. In the automotive industry, let's imagine someone's coming to the end of their auto lease. So they know they're going to be on the market in 6 months, but they're not today, are they? And then beyond that, the next 30% probably going to be looking for it in the next year or so. The next 30% maybe going to be 3 to 5 years. And guess what? That final 30%, they're never going to be looking for your product. There's 30% of the population who doesn't drive, doesn't plan to drive. They live in New York. I remember when I was an actor in New York and I saw on someone's resume, it said they had a driver's license. And I'm like, no, duh, doesn't everybody? And they're like, not if you live in New York. And which was so true. And it was a learning for me that, like, wow, people in New York don't drive. They take the subway or a taxi. They don't have cars because it's too dang expensive to find parking and everything. So 30% of the audience will never want what you have. With a podcast, you're in front of the audience on a regular basis. So when the timing is right and they hear your message at the right time, they're ready to buy. And guess what? This makes your sales so much easier because now they know, like, and trust you. They come to you when the timing is right, and you will be able to sell with so much more ease because, quite honestly, it's, we're not here for that. What are you really here for? What do all of us love to do most in our business? Anybody want to pop that in the chat if you know which of those 3 you love to do most in the business? I see Chris already put it in there as part of the 3 items, which is, of course, fulfillment. We probably all love what we do, right? I mean, I hope so. I know I love what I do. I love coaching. I love supporting people. I love helping people out, working with clients. Exactly. That's the number one thing, is the fulfillment. So let's make lead generation and sales easier. Let's make it happen almost on complete automation. And your podcast is one of the best possible tools to do that. So before I jump over to giveaways, I just real quickly want to ask, does anybody have any questions about that? And I should also mention too, by the way, I do have a hard stop because I'm doing summit interviews later this afternoon. I got 4 of them lined up back to back right after this call. So I am going to have to leave right at the end of the hour. But any questions on podcasting before we move on? Just raise a hand and get it up there.
Audience, is it important to also be a host? Like, if you don't, to host, if you don't have your own show yet, can you be a guest? Can you still benefit from that?
You can, and it's a great question, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. And here's what I teach people in this. Part of when I was supporting myself as an actor, a lot of actors wait tables. I actually was in sales to help me as an actor, and I worked for a television station, Univision, KMEX TV down in Los Angeles. And one of the things that I learned in the advertising industry there is that you need what's called R&F, which is also Krista's children's initials. It's not Roman and Farah, it's reach and frequency. You need both reach and frequency. So if you're thinking, well, I'm just going to be a guest on all these other podcasts, number one, you're going to be disappointed. And number two, you're going to be leaving a ton of money on the table because you're going to get reach. You'll get the exposure to all these audiences, but you're not going to get the frequency. And as I mentioned, 3% of the audience at any given time is looking to buy, the rest aren't. So what are you going to do? Try to go back on that same show again and again to be in front of their audience when they're ready? It's not effective. Okay. My better suggestion would be pay to be a sponsor on a show. You could be a guest on the show, but then I would try to follow it up with several sponsorships, because the other part is people won't remember you initially. They might hear you talk on a podcast and go, wow, that was amazing. Ted really laid down some cool information there, but yeah, I'll have to get that link later when I get home. And then they don't, and they forget. And because Ted doesn't come back on that show, it's kind of gone. Yeah. So you're getting the reach, but not the frequency. So my recommendation to overcome that is don't start getting on a bunch of podcasts until you've already got your own podcast. Because much like Netflix, guess what? Someone who's listening to a podcast, they want to know what's another cool podcast I could listen to. Like, you binge on a show on Netflix, and when you're done with that, it's like, what's the next show I can binge on? So if you've already got a podcast and someone hears you and they think, wow, that Coach Steve, he's laying down some good stuff there. Oh, he's got a podcast. I'm going to check that out. And they can flip right over in their phone because they're in the podcast app. They can go right to his podcast, follow, and then boom, now it's going to be in my feed. And when I'm ready, I can hear it. So much better for you, because now they're going to get the repetition of Steve's message over and over. And again, build the know, like, trust, build the sales because of that. So great question. It can work, but my recommendation, don't do it until you have your own show.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned just by being around you and overhearing so many of your calls recently over the last couple of months, is that there's strategy behind everything. So don't just do a podcast for having one. Don't just attend as a guest for the sake of it, but there's a strategy behind all of it. And that's what Michael teaches. All right, do you have a couple of questions? Let's kind of like power through them with quick questions and quick answers. We're going to do Barbara, Kathleen, and then Ted.
Hey there, you started touching on my question, which was being a podcast guest and how you can actually make an offer that converts on a podcast. So if you have the podcast host who has the know, like, trust factor of their audience, how can you dovetail into that if they're saying, hey, I know so-and-so and they're great. So it's more of a warm handshake as opposed to a cold potential lead on that. So, if you're not, obviously being a regular is the best thing possible. I love your idea about being a sponsor. I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah.
And how do you, in that moment, do the best for, the host and yourself in serving their audience and having some sort of a lead magnet or offer that would convert?
Yeah. Great question, Barbara. And I think one of the first keys is find out who their audience is and what their audience tunes in for. It's one thing to know, like, well, my audience is women 40 to 50. Great. And that's who you target for your audience. But what is the particular audience tuning into that show for? Are they coming there for real estate investment advice? Are they coming there for fitness advice? Once you kind of get that dialed in and find out, then go, okay, that's my audience. The people tuning in for that will definitely want what I have. So make sure you're a fit for that audience, much like JV partnerships, by the way. Then create a lead magnet that's going to be exciting to that audience to jump in on. And there are certain elements of creating a great lead magnet that we don't have time to really go in too deeply today. If we have time at the end, maybe we can circle back to it. But having a great lead magnet is helpful. And then the handshake with the guest, here's what I recommend. And by the way, for my show, Consciously Speaking, which is my largest show with over 2 million downloads, that show I now actually charge guests to be on, because I get so many. It's supply and demand. I get about 30 solicitations a week now. People saying, hey, love to be on your show, want to be on your show, want to be on your show. Would you interview me? Blah, blah, blah. I don't have room for it. And so I just generically will send people to a page that says, if you want to be a guest in the show, it's $397. If you want to be a guest and sponsor, it's $697. And what that means is I'll interview you, and then I will, for the next 5 episodes or 3 episodes, I forget what the $697 price mark is, I will promote your free gift. And that's the difference. So now if I bring somebody on my show, let's say I brought you on my show, Barbara, and I say, today's guest is Barbara. She's great. She talks about this, that, and everything else. And we go through the interview process, and, you know, I can make glowing remarks about you and such, but ultimately you've only been there one time, and we're going to be done at the end. We could make your free gift offer, but here's the other deal. If my audience hears free gift offers every show, they're going to go, yeah, it's just another gift offer, and it's done. But now if the next 3 episodes or 4 or 5 or whatever it is, I say, hey, today's episode is being brought to you by Barbara and her amazing free gift. I got to tell you, this gift knocked my socks off. You got to check it out. The link to it is in the show notes. It's going to help you to blah, 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 overcome what. So now that host is selling you through that 60-second sponsorship. I think you're going to do much better with sponsorships potentially than you would with just the interviews. And by the way, Jay and I are producing an event called Reach, which is going to be coming up in October. And the Reach event, it's a 4-day live in-person event in Santa Ana, California. And during those 4 days, we're going to get your podcast launched. It's a roll up your sleeves. We're going to support you through getting your podcast live and joint venturing, because they play so well together that we're going to set you up with the right joint venture partners that you can start making money right out of the gate. And we're going to teach exactly what you just are asking about. How do we make that work? And if you have somebody who's now selling you, and why would they sell you unless you're paying them in advance, which is what a sponsor does, or you're paying them on the back end, which is what a JV partner does, or an affiliate partner, they will promote you. And knowing that if anybody signs up for your free gift, gets into your funnel, you're set up with affiliate tracking, if anybody buys, they just made money. And quite honestly, they'll probably make more money doing that than if you pay them up front as a sponsor. All right. So look for sponsors too. I mean, affiliate partners. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to jump in here. And yeah, I know that both Jay and Michael and I are really excited about the Reach event. It's live and in person, which is amazing. It's kind of the first, big outside of our small summit masterminds that we've done live. It's going to be the first live event that is available to all of you. So definitely check that out. It's in the chat. Now, to be mindful of time, because I know that you still want to cover giveaways, a whole other section. I want to give Kathleen Panning a chance to ask her quick question. And then Ted, if Kristen, if you'll put your question in the chat, we'll even copy and paste them over to the Facebook group once the replay is up, so we can continue the conversation. But take it from me, everybody. Michael can talk about this for hours and hours and hours on end, because there's a lot to it. So a lot more than we can really cover in this workshop today. So we'll let Kathleen kind of do that. Michael, if you'll keep your answer short.
I know I have a tendency to just try to cover all the details. So
you're very thorough all the time, which we all appreciate, and so do your clients.
Okay, my question is, Michael, I do a live internet radio show every week, and it then becomes a podcast. Mm-hmm. Is there an ideal length for a podcast or internet radio show type of thing?
There is no ideal length. I always teach my clients that it can't be too long, but it can be too boring. So don't take 30 minutes to say what you could have said in 20, because then you're wasting people's time. So be respectful of people's time and make the show as long as it needs to be. Krista and I, when we do our show, we don't have a set time. We kind of we'd love to come in around the 30-minute mark, but we've gone as long as an hour on some of our shows, and 37 minutes. We did one this morning. And so it's kind of all over the map. But when we feel like we've wrapped it up, we just call it a day. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Okay. And then I'm just real quickly, because I do love the question that's in the chat there. What would you recommend for a joint effort, collaborative podcast program between two businesses that complement each other? Well, Chris and I were talking about this today. And so as an example, one of the things that happens in the podcasting space is known as pod swapping, where one show will interview you and you talk about your podcast, and then you interview them on your show and talk about their podcast. We don't do interviews on Mornings with Michael and Krista. So what we're going to look to do is we're going to reach out to other shows and say, hey, would you promote our podcast just in your, either your 30-second spot or conversation? And we'll do the same for theirs. And so if we find it's a fit and we feel cool about, promoting it, we're not going to promote crap because we don't want to do that. But if it's a good fit, we'll promote each other's shows. So you can find anybody that has a similar audience to you and reach out about cross-promoting. Doesn't even have to be interviews necessarily. Does that make sense? I hope that answers your question. Does that do that, Kristen?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of that will be covered in Reach when we're talking about the joint venture and the
Exactly.
podcast combination. It is all about finding these win-win situations and how you essentially we're looking to monetize, right?
Exactly.
Although as much fun as we're having, at least Michael and I do with the podcast that we're making, at some point, most of you here with your business are wanting to monetize it in some way,
Yeah.
and same with being a guest. So that's all going to get covered in that live event.
Absolutely. All right. So here's the next piece that I normally, when I teach someone how to do a podcast, it's like a natural segue to the next element. The next pillar of authority is virtual summits. And why is that? Because guess what? A virtual summit is pretty much a podcast. If you think of a podcast as a series of recordings, now, yeah, you're going to format them a little bit differently, but it's still a series of recordings, but it's delivered in a different way. Podcasts goes out into the world of Apple Podcasts, as Spotify, and it's out to the world freely available for anybody to participate, listen, and guess what? You don't know who they are. Okay, you got people listening, you have no idea. But a summit, you're taking your recordings, combining them all together in a package, and only making those available to people who opt in for it. And you're requiring the summit participants, your guest experts, to promote it. So now you're getting out to a big audience, which, by the way, you should do with your podcast as well. You ask each guest you interview to promote it. So all of those things considered, a summit is very much a follow-on to a podcast. It's just how you repackage it. Now, one of the things that makes Summit successful is you will often have all of your guests give a gift. How many of you have ever been on a summit as a guest expert? Okay, we got a few of you. Great. So usually when you go on a summit, that's the benefit to you. You've got a few benefits, one of which is exposure. You're going to be presented in front of a big audience, hopefully. Number two, it might grow your authority if you're being on a summit with other big wigs out there, like if you're on a summit that's also got Deepak Chopra or Oprah Winfrey or something, and you're in that space, it's like, wow, you were in that summit with them, you shared a stage with them kind of thing. That elevates your authority a bit, another bonus. But the big one is you want to grow your list. And so when you go on a summit, you offer a free gift, and then people will sign up for your free gift. And so your list grows as well as the summit host. Well, if you want to get all the benefits of that, but you don't want to do all the work of the recordings, the interviews and other elements that if you're the summit host that you've got to do. I mean, I've been in works for my summit right now, the Podcast Super Summit coming up in August. We've been working on this thing for months, and it is a ton of work. But guess what? You can do a giveaway where all it is the gifts. People just sign up to get all the free gifts. They don't have to go to listen to any interviews. They just want the freebies. And it is highly effective for growing your list rapidly, much easier than putting on a summit. And so I am a big advocate for giveaways. And I've been running my own giveaways and teaching giveaways for years now. And when I was teaching giveaways, I do these 3-day how to launch your own giveaway retreats where people pay and come and they learn all about it. And by the end, they're pretty much ready to go with their giveaway. And I was running one of these. And at the end of it, one of my clients said, Oh, Michael, this seems like such a technical headache. Can I just pay you to do my giveaway for me? And a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, no, how about this though? I'll do it for you for free. But now here's the deal. This is the big but. Most giveaways these days, when the person who's running the giveaway host creates it, they're charging people, the guest contributors, to be in it. Why are they charging them? Well, they're charging them because it is a ton of labor to put on a giveaway. You've got to, first of all, you got to own the software that can build the pages, hold the pages, track the opt-ins, control and manage the email list, market and follow up to that list, and you have to have affiliate tracking. You have to have all of those elements in place. And if you don't have that, you're going to have to go buy it and get it. Okay. So that's just the expense of the stuff you're going to need to own to house it. Then you got to build the pages. You got to do all of your emails, which is many emails. I think there's probably like 9 total emails altogether. You're doing all of this labor as the host. And yes, you are going to grow your list more than anybody else, but you still got to pay a lot of out-of-pocket expense making all that happen. So most giveaway hosts now, not all, but most will charge a small fee to be a contributor in their giveaway. So and by the way, it's one of the things that I teach. If you're going to do your own giveaway, you should definitely charge people to be in it because they're going to get a big benefit from it. And you're the one doing all the labor. So definitely charge for somebody to be in your giveaway. But if you don't want to do all the labor, my company does it. We've done so many, we now have it down to a science. And so I decided, hey, I'll do your giveaway for you. I will coach you on how to do the giveaway. I will even coach you on how do we come up with the right title for it? What type of audience do we want to attract? What type of gift contributors do we want to attract? Let's build your artwork. And we build your registration page. I give you swipe copy to invite people to be a part of your giveaway. I help you through all this because I've done it hundreds of times. And that's part of the coaching that you get in addition to the background labor. We house it all on our sites. We do it all for you. And literally, it is a done for you for free giveaway. We get paid, my team gets paid because we collect the fees of the contributors, which we set, by the way, with you. So let's say, Steve decides he wants to run a giveaway. We chat about it. He says, I'd like to charge people $197 to be a part of the giveaway. We go, great, let's do that. Let's get it set up. Steve's part in it is he has to have the connections. It's Steve's people that he's going to invite. Now, I can support to a degree. If I know somebody who'd be a good fit, I'll recommend it to them. But Steve's got to, be the one who says, yeah, I know at least 20 people who'll be in my giveaway. And just to be clear, when we do this, we do have you put down a $500 refundable deposit. And I've offered this through Jay's program before, and we've had some people in the program who've done their giveaways through me. And if you do that, the $500 is refundable as long as we hit our minimum threshold. Our minimum threshold is $4,000. My company needs to make $4,000 to make it worth our while. That's not a lot of money. We're not making, hand over fist on this. But
Michael, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Remind the audience, everyone here, Global Lounge, the benefit of hosting and the benefits of contributing. What's the whole reason of doing all of this?
Absolutely. So the benefit of hosting is you're going to grow your list, hopefully by 1,000 or more. Now, I say hopefully because a lot's going to depend on who's going to play with you. Like I said, that's the part I can't have for you. You've got to have your own relationships built in. So if you've got great relationships with people that have large lists, you're going to do pretty well. You'll probably do well over 1,000. But if your relationship is with people who have smaller lists, let's say you get 20 people to play with you and each one's got a list of 1,000. Well, that's a possible exposure to 20,000 people. Not everybody's going to opt in. It's a smaller percentage. So maybe you'll only grow your list by 1,000. But guess what? You did it for nothing. You didn't have to pay for any of those leads. You got 1,000 new people on your list and you didn't have to pay a dime. Now, I also recommend for people, typically when you're going to be a guest in somebody's summit, that I like to deliver roughly $2 or less per lead. So in other words, if you pay $250 to be in somebody's summit, you should get anywhere from 125 to 250 leads out of it, assuming your gift is good.
Too?
I'm sorry, for giveaways, not summits, for giveaways. I keep switching them alternately.
know.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, if I say summit right now, I'm talking about giveaways. So if you pay $250 to be in a giveaway, you should hope for anywhere from 125 to 250 opt-ins. That's $2 a lead. $2 a lead is really good. I mean, if you're running Facebook ads, you're probably paying more like 6 to 8, maybe 10 for a lead. So it's really good rate on leads. And here's the part where it all pays off in the world of joint venturing. How many of you all know Ann Gordon? We probably all played with Ann at some time or another. She's been in this group for years, dear friend of mine. Ann is, I run tons of giveaways year after year. Ann is in probably 50% of them or more. She jumps into just about every single one. And you know why she does? Because number one, she knows the value, not just of the lead she gets, but the what I call an echo effect. How many of you also have seen Ann's name show up on leaderboards as in the top 10 when she's promoting other partners' stuff? She is almost always in the top 10 because she has grown her list by doing giveaways over and over and over again. Her list continues to grow. So even if those people don't buy from her, when she goes to promote somebody else's stuff, they may buy from them, and it puts her up on the leaderboard, and she makes money on the affiliate commissions because she's grown her list. Okay. And we all know about the power of list size. So all of this comes into play in a giveaway. And if you do it through us, again, we have a 4,000 minimum threshold. Do the math. The example I was just saying, if Steve said, I want to sell it at 197 for basic entry, we need 20 people essentially to hit the threshold. And then he gets his deposit back. If he fell short of the deposit, we keep it from the deposit. If you're going to fall way short of that, we have a conversation like, hey, what can we do to get this built up? And all of that comes with the coaching that is included in it. But other than that, it is a free, done for you service that is highly effective for you to grow your list and actually build you up in the world of joint venturing. Because guess what? If you're the one running the giveaway or the summit for that matter, your list size does not matter. When I ran my first summit in 2016, I had about 300 people on my list. At the end, I had over 3,300 people on my list. So you don't have to be the one with the big list. You just have to have the connections that are willing to play with you and create an interesting summit that will attract them, or giveaway that will attract them, and take it from there. And we support you in all of that as well. So we're down to like 8 minutes. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A on any of that. And if we could put the link to the done for you giveaways in there. And then also I want to say,
there.
perfect. And we're running Krista's giveaway right now. So if you want to see kind of what it looks like, what a registration page looks like, how it looks to play with it, let's put Krista's giveaway into the chat as well.
It's in there too, but we can drop that one again.
Yeah,
And I just wanted to kind of ground everybody. And the reason that I invited and that Jay wanted Michael to be here to talk about these two elements is that if you're here because you're interested in joint venturing and to be a good joint venture partner in both ways, whether it's you're looking for partners or you're supporting somebody else, we all know that having exposure through your email list and increasing your social media platforms are really critical. And there's not much you can do to play with somebody, these, I would say bigger players, until you're there. And it becomes kind of this negative catch-22 where you can't play in the giveaway or you can't play in this until you've have more leads, you don't have leads to play. And so that's why I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention as a way to start building. And really this growth list build strategy has to be an ongoing part of your marketing strategy. Jay talks about doing 3 to 4, whether it's a giveaway or summit every year. So like every quarter, you're doing something significant to continue building your list. And especially if you don't have one yet, it's important to take action so that you're able to play with the people you want to play with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, let's go ahead and take questions. And yeah, Yuri says that you see the link. Can you post Michael's link about, yes, that
it's
one's
the one
in there
right above it, Yuri.
Yeah.
You see it there?
when you look at mine, I want you to know how easy it was for me as the host working with Michael's team, is I asked for an image, not even a done image, just like what image do you like in general, what colors, what fonts, and they've created everything. I didn't have to do any of the tech on that part. My whole role is reaching out and seeking aligned contributors. And, I teach alignment all the time in all of our different modules. So alignment's key with this as well, that you don't want something that's all over the place. When you kind of hone in on what you're looking for, the type of contributors that you want, then you can really build success for everybody who's there, for the contributors as well.
Yeah. I also want to just throw real quickly in there too, for anybody that's thinking of podcasting, or if you're looking at podcasting and considering it, I have a free gift there I'm going to toss in. It's the simple 5-step process to launch a rockin' podcast in just 14 days. And it's just a quick little guide. It's a PDF guide that'll tell you, here are the steps you need to do, title, artwork, hosting platform, launch strategy. It's encapsulated, but if you're a self-starter, that could really point you in the right direction. So grab that if you'd like.
Great. So we got 2 questions. I know Michael has to run, but I'll be happy to stick around a few minutes as extra. We've got Ted and then Yuri.
Yeah, so Michael, on podcast, what's better in terms of style? Interview style, a presentation by the host, or like 2 hosts with a conversation between them? Those are 3 different options. Yeah. Which do you like best?
Well, some of my shows use all 3. Like one of my shows, the Podcast Guy, which is the rebranding of the PodQuest show. I'm going to be changing it to the Podcast Guy. And in that show, we do solo shows where it's just me talking. We do interviews, and we do roundtables where it's a panel discussion. It's totally up to you, but here's the deal. When you do customer interviews or guest interviews, the theory behind that and the reason this became so prevalent is because the idea is you get every guest who comes on your show to promote it to their tribe. So the more guests you interview, the more they're promoting it to these tribes. So your audience grows by kind of like mushrooming out by connecting with all of their audiences. It's started to lose its appeal and effectiveness over time because it's so overdone. So I think you need to do what works for you. It's really becomes a more matter of what's going to keep you podcasting. Make it fun. Make it something you enjoy. Chris and I don't do interviews, but we love talking over coffee every morning. So yeah.
Great. And Yuri.
You bet. Yuri.
Michael, okay. So yes, you can hear me. I know you have to go, and maybe just Krista can help me with this question later. I'm very new, like full concept of giveaways is new to me, but it sounds very interesting. So maybe I can just understand it from Krista later, or.
Are you talking about the giveaways?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but also just I'm imagining, well, I'm kind of hoping you're going to be on our podcasting call later this week. Is that this week?
Next week, I think.
Oh no, it's next week. So you can always ask me this type of stuff on our podcast.
Oh, okay, yeah.
As well,
okay, great.
If you need more support. Yeah. Yuri is in my podcast training, Zero to Launch Podcast Accelerator. And so we do 2 monthly calls, so she can bring it up on that. All right. Any other questions? Otherwise, let's see. You've got the link to my free gift, the simple 5-step process to launch a rockin' podcast. You got a link to learn about the giveaways, and there's more on that page too about the giveaways. Hopefully that'll help. Explains a little bit about the pricing, the deposit, how it all works. And by the way, once you go through that, if you decide to try it out, the first thing we do, I don't take everybody. You've got to fill out a questionnaire, and that questionnaire is for me to see if it's a fit for you. Because as I read through that, I can start to kind of go, I don't think you're there yet. Because quite frankly, some giveaways bomb. And often they bomb because you don't have enough friends with big enough lists to play with you. And you probably got a leg up on most people because you're in this group. But let's say your thing is so unique, like Ted and I were talking about this a little bit, and his niche is so unique that even though he's connected to all these other potential partners, they're not the right audiences. So it can be tough. You gotta, be sure that you can find 20 people at least in the right audience who are willing to play. So I've got a questionnaire you would have to go through first to see if you even qualify to do that. And then if you do, then it's a matter of you put down your deposit, you book a meeting with me, we start setting dates. That's my 1-minute warning. And then we take it from there. So that's in there for you. Let's see, what else was there, Krista?
Well, just so you know, everything, all links that you'll need is going to be added to the replay. So by the end of the day, this recording will be turned into a YouTube video that's placed in the Global Lounge call with hashtag Tech Strategy Call so that you can recall it at any time. All of the links will be there. And go ahead and ask questions if you have anything that you didn't think of that's come up for you in the meantime, and Michael can jump in and help you with those. So
Very
while
happy
you're
to.
still here, can everyone please help me give Michael a round of applause appreciation for sharing his expertise with us. Thank you so much, Michael.
It's been
Appreciate you
such a
being here.
pleasure. You got it. Love you all, especially you, Krista. And I will catch you all next time. Ciao, everybody.
All right, everybody who's here, I would love, before you go, I want you to drop in the chat a takeaway. What are you committed to doing? Where's your interest? Is there something that you're like, oh, I kind of got, I need to know more about this, or I'm interested in doing that. I never want you to walk away from one of our calls of any kind without sinking into thinking, what does this mean to me? So let's see it. Go ahead and drop that in. What is interesting? What are you committed to do? What's up? Okay, checking out and doing a giveaway. I'm going to join one. It's time to regain my show and begin podcasting again. I want to do something about sponsors for my show. Yeah, that's be good for you, Kathleen. Mapping out my podcast and launching. That's awesome, Kristen. Yuri's like, podcast. And let's see, commit to getting my podcast intro and summary written. Yeah, so once you've committed to doing the podcast, then it's taking it step by step and getting each of the elements done. But you're both in good hands. And continue promoting my podcast and getting great guests. Awesome. All right. Well, I thank you, everyone. We have an amazing group here at Global Lounge and look forward to seeing you throughout the summer. We do continue with the twice a month calls, plus the alternating months. That means every Thursday, there's the chance for you to come in and connect, have accountability, give JV invitations, or of course, as a day to learn from one of our guests, one of our experts. And next month, our expert is going to be business coach Steve Feld. Steve, will you share with us what you're going to be sharing and teaching in your workshop?
Yeah, I think we went with attract more prospects and customers.
Who wants to attract more people?
Yeah.
More
And it's all
prospects.
about your message.
All right, well, we're looking forward to that. Awesome. So we'll see everybody in the Facebook group. You can leave comments there, and any of the links that you need will be there for you at any time. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Take care.